Welcome to the big show.
He could go all the way. Oh, America! Are you serious? It is showtime, baby. Here we go. Red Jam Slam. That is for this. I like to move it, move it. I like to move it, move it. I like to move it, move it. Move it. I like to move it, move it. I like to move it, move it. I like to move it, move it. Give it up.
Welcome to the big show.
Let me say,
Simply
wake up about to say,
breaks a couple of tackles. Headlock, go. He could go all the way.
All righty. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Cold War Radio here on our home base, WAAR. We are America Radio, your number one source for streaming political and government talk anywhere. I'm Hutch Bailey Jr., deep down in the bunker in my Smith & Wesson studio. And without further ado, let's welcome straight out of Atlanta, Georgia, Miss Stacy Rush. Good evening, Stacy.
Good evening, Hutch Bailey Jr. Glad to be here with you, wrapping up this week. How are you tonight?
Doing just fine. I'm glad it's getting toward the end of the week. I'm looking forward to the weekend, but I always love this show, this Thursday night show, because it, like you said, it kind of wraps the week up, and we're still in business, so that's a good thing. Please follow me on Spreaker, ladies and gentlemen. Like the Facebook page, facebook.com/Cold War Radio, 2 A's in war. You can catch the show on Blueberry, Roku, YouTube. Cold War Radio is an iHeartRadio program. You can catch it with that free app. We also have our own app, Cold War Radio, in your app stores. You can email the show at scrtv@live.com, and the call-in line 412-567-1460. We'll see how Skype is acting after they were bought out by Microsoft, and we're probably going to dump them pretty soon and go to another platform. I've had about enough of them, and it's acting up all over the place. So if you give me a call and I don't answer you, stand by. I'll do my best to call you back. That being said, the chat room is up on Spreaker. Just go to steelcityresistance.blogspot.com for that link, the show notes links. And there's a speech by General Kelly you might want to check out. It's in 3 parts, but the first part is posted on the website, and it will take you to the second and third parts after that. We're going to talk about him tonight and several other things. But if you can help, there's a donate button on the website, also in the right-hand column. I'd appreciate if you did that. Now, I gotta say, Stacy, I was listening to Fox News before the program, as I usually do, as I'm getting things ready, and this isn't in the show notes. It just hit me. I think what we're seeing with this with this, it started out being Russia, but then it was the bugging or surveillance of Trump Tower during the campaign. And I have to tell you, I smell a rat. I smell a rat, Stacy. Everybody, and when I say that, I mean the deep state. The deep state that resides at Fox News, the deep state that's in the Republican Party, the deep state in the intelligence community. There is way too much consensus, in my opinion. I have nothing to back this up other than the fact of all the detailed leaks that the opposition and others acquired shortly after the president took over, and even during the president-elect period. Other than that, for everybody to get on there and say unequivocally there was no evidence at all whatsoever of anything, period, done, end of story, just when it turned into revelations that the Russians were really dealing with the Democrats. It's I smell a rat. When I see, and I'll tell you what set me off. I wasn't even going to say anything about this, but what set me off was Charles Krauthammer. Charles Krauthammer got up there and basically said, anybody, I'm paraphrasing, but it was like anybody who has any thoughts at all about there being any kind of anything is an idiot, is basically what he said, and it rubbed me the wrong way. He went too far. He wouldn't have said that about it. I don't know your feelings.
Well, my feeling has been from the giddy up on the tweet that I didn't like the tweet when it came out. I didn't like the accusing an ex-president of something so serious. And I'm concerned about what type of proof Trump had of this going into this allegation. I am not saying that it didn't happen. I am just saying that what you're stating, with everybody kind of circling the wagons now and saying that there's absolutely no proof out there, I would just have preferred if he would have said it or brought it out when indeed he had something in his hands that he could release at his leisure, if you will, or at the appropriate time. Because I can see where you're coming from, where when you're hearing, I know too that the two heads of the Intelligence Committee said the same thing. We have absolutely no proof that there was any surveillance of Trump Tower before, during, or after the election, and then you've got Charles Krauthammer making a statement like that. Again, I am not trying to dispel that something occurred. Something likely did occur. I just would prefer if he wouldn't have gotten out and made such a serious charge against a president via Twitter without something in his hands. And maybe he has something in his hands, Hutch. Honestly, we don't know. There needs to be an investigation, period.
Nope, I agree with you. And I would say this, though. I would say that if you look at the way this has been rolled out, and I've developed an uncanny ability to not worry about what Trump says. I have to get past that because it would stop everything. I'd have to sit there and scrutinize it.
And sometimes I don't have a problem with some of the things he says, but when you're accusing a former president of committing a crime where he could be arrested and charged, that to me is serious. Other things that he says, it kind of gets on my nerves when he tweets about Arnold Schwarzenegger or what have you, but whatever, he's Trump. He's Trump being Trump.
But the thing is, a couple things. One is that I absolutely believe he did it without any evidence or any way of backing that up. I think he did more than that. But my thing is that if you noticed how the vernacular, the statements were almost all verbatim. Mm-hmm. And they said there is absolutely no evidence. Well, here's my thoughts on that. If the top levels of American intelligence agencies were the ones that did it, why would there be any evidence? They're not going to leave any evidence. They're so good up there that there's no. I mean, they could have done this like you saw in the WikiLeaks, and they could have blamed it on Norway.
Well, and let me tell you one other thing too to consider as well, and that's the situation that happened with Benghazi. And we talked about Mitt Romney losing that election during the Benghazi question with Candy Crowley, where he was pretty much sabotaged. but he didn't bring it up in the foreign policy debate either. Sometimes I feel like when things are this corrupt at that level, that even when people find out who should expose it and let the American people know, they make a judgment call that it is better to deny it than to have the American people completely lose 100% faith in all of its institutions. And we might be at 90%, but we're not at 100%. And
Right.
sometimes I wonder about that type of situation going on as well.
Now let me try this. Big Rich, are you on the air? Okay, that didn't work. It shows that he's on there, but he's not. Okay, no problem. I'll call him back. But I want to get into this to the rest of this. The president put forward a budget, which they're also saying is dead on arrival. But this thing is beautiful, man. It cuts funding everywhere, man. PBS, NPR, National Endowment for the Arts. Just steep cuts, and you know the thing is, even Meals on Wheels, and the Democrats are going to go ballistic with this. It's going to be fun to watch, you know. But why is the federal government involved in that anyway? If you think about it,
I know it should.
when I was growing up, it was churches were doing that, you know. But here's what I want you to watch. Here's the thing to me that is the most important about this, and I think this is another art of the deal, 3-dimensional chess game. I want you to watch, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to watch the big government Republicans. That's who I want you to watch. When they start defending these ridiculous agencies that are out there, we all know, and they've even all said how the Department of Education and Agriculture and all the rest of these big, huge agencies are worthless. And the biggest cut is only 30%. And that's to the deep state. That's to the State Department. You know, and in the next big cut, I forget where it comes from, EPA.
I love that.
I do too. But you watch these. I want you, ladies and gentlemen. This is the deal. This is how we identify the rhinos. This is how you identify people that will never conform to shrinking this government. You're going to hear every argument. Now you know what you're going to hear from the Democrats. It already started. You already heard Nancy Pelosi say that we're killing women and children, and we hate education, and the whole 9 yards. She, you know what she's going to say, though. But wait and see what some of these Republicans are going to say.
Yeah, no, and I agree with you 100%. Now, I personally, you know, like you said, I feel like he's starting out with everything, right, and is willing 100% to negotiate on some of the points within his budget. I kind of think that that's his process. But yeah, you're absolutely not just the rhinos, and I guess they probably all actually. That just came out of my mouth, and I'm just going to take that back. You're going to see the people who too bringing up, you know, porculus projects to benefit cronies within their states or their brothers, cousins who, you know, can build something, you know, in their particular state. So you're going to see all that. You're going to see how big government works, and it actually is going to be, I think, a beautiful thing. I think it's going to expose. I think the budget process itself is going to be an eye-opener for the American people, and Donald Trump is actually going to get the average American who does not pay attention to this type of thing to actually pay attention to it, and I think that is the most beautiful thing about it.
I do too, and I think one of the most important ones to watch actually is going to be the Department of Agriculture. And the reason that I say that is because the Department of Agriculture, I think something like 80% of their budget is grub stubs. It's food stamps. And in the last 20 years, in the last 20 years, what they've managed to do, what the United States Chamber of Commerce, who is the boss of the establishment Republicans, they're the ones that write the bills and everything. Big Rich, stand by. I got you on the line here. Be right with you. But you watch and see in the last 20 years what these corporations have been able to do. If you've noticed, every year more things are available for purchase with the EBT card. Coca-Cola's managed to do it. You know, the potato chip companies, all the snack companies. You can buy just about anything with those food stamps. This is crony capitalism big time, and you're going to watch them fight that. Watch them fight the agriculture department. You'll see the people who work for Tom Donahue at the Chamber of Commerce. Big Rich from New York City, what's on your mind?
Hutch and Stacy, good evening. Stacy, with all due respect, I believe I believe Trump has the goods on this.
And I hope you're right. And I really, you know what? I hope you're right. And in my heart of hearts, I believe, like Hutch does, that the Obama administration or people within the deep state absolutely did it. I just want him to have the goods on it. I really do want him to.
And the reason I say this, I believe he got this information from outside sources, not within our own security.
Mm-hmm.
That's why they're so shocked.
I was thinking that too. That's
why they're so shocked. How in the hell did he get the information? And don't be surprised if Israel minister, when he came and visit him, drop off the envelope and said, "Check it out when I leave." You know, because these people got great intelligence.
That's a good
point. And Obama did the prime minister real wrong, and he want to get back Obama the worst way he can. Mm-hmm. If he had this information, he was more than happy to give it to Trump. That's why when you see the FBI reacting the way they're reacting, like they're in shock, like within themselves, they're asking how the hell he got the information. Not even nobody knows what he has, only Trump. And he would never jeopardize his presidency with a lie like that. I think he would never do that. He must have it.
That's what I'm hopeful of too, and I really don't think he would either. I really, in my heart of hearts, I don't believe that he would either. I just want it to be true. I truly do, because if it's not, and if he can't produce something that he can actually give up, if he without exposing maybe the person who gave him the information, right? If it obviously didn't come from intelligence communities that are circling the wagons now. You know, I want him to be able to do this. I really do, because otherwise that serious charge alone is going to be. You thought Russia was something that kept the mainstream media in a 24-hour frenzy? How about when they can say without any doubt whatsoever and repeat it, whether it's true or not, he had nothing and he accused the former president of a serious crime? It's going to be 24/7 news coverage from here until his 4 years is up.
Trump's so far been batting 1,000. Haven't been wrong. You haven't proved me wrong yet.
Let's hope it stays that way. Thanks for calling, Rich.
Thanks,
all right,
Rich.
Sir. Thank you.
Yeah, I hope so too, man. I have to admit, I feel the same way. When it first came out, I'm going, uh-oh. And then I said, there's no way that he would say something like that if he didn't have backup. Now, in his defense, today he said that, or yesterday, he said within 2 weeks you'll see it.
And that
I was kind of thinking the same thing that Rich was thinking. I'm thinking maybe his own people found this.
Yeah.
Maybe somebody that isn't even, because he's smart. He might not be Rothschild, grammar smart, but he's made his way in a tough world, in a tough city, and he knows that the state is gunning for him. So I could see him using his own resources and maybe hiring private detectives or people, ex-intelligence community people.
And I think that's where you're going to see it. I think it's likely that he probably does have some people within his grasp that are ex-intelligence who can get him the information that he needs. I do think that that's true, and I just hope it is something that he is able to use. So that, to Big Rich's point, if it was another government who has the goods, I hope it is something that he's able to release, and not just say, "Hey, we know it's true." That it is something that the American people will be able to see as well. But I do love the fact that now you have people in the intelligence community coming out and saying, "Oh no, he was never being investigated for ties to Russia." Really? Either he was a Russian agent, or people that were working for him were Russian agents, or he wasn't. So just being able to get that off of 24/7 news coverage was quite brilliant. Standing alone.
And please let me see this be the destruction of Comey too. I really don't want to see him for much longer, man. I really don't. Now, one of the most enjoyable things that's happened in the last couple of days, John McCain was on the floor of the Senate, and they were going to bring up Montenegro, which is a landlocked, very small country near Russia, former member of the Soviet Union. Majority of the country is pro-Russia right now. I think 40% wanted to go into NATO. But McCain is up there on the floor of the Senate, And I'm just going to let you listen to this, and I want you to listen to Rand Paul with one of the most outstanding rebuttals that I have ever heard. Let's take a listen.
All right, Rick, stick with us. We want to go to Capitol Hill. Senator from Kentucky, member of the Foreign Relations Committee, Rand Paul. Senator, good morning. Good to see you.
Good morning.
We are going to get to health care in just a moment. Just want to get your reaction to the words Senator John McCain had for you from the Senate floor yesterday. Let's listen.
I note the senator from Kentucky leaving the floor without justification or any rationale for the action that he has just taken. That is really remarkable. That a senator blocking a treaty that is supported by the overwhelming number, perhaps 98 at least, of his colleagues, would come to the floor and object and walk away. And walk away. The only conclusion you can draw when he walks away is he has no argument to be made. He has no justification for his objection to having a small nation be part of NATO that is under assault from the Russians. So I repeat again, the senator from Kentucky is now working for Vladimir Putin.
So, Senator, a little context around that. The vote was around putting Montenegro into NATO. What's your reaction to Senator McCain's characterization of your objection?
Well, I think he makes a really, really strong case, for term limits. I think maybe he's past his prime. I think maybe he's gotten a little bit unhinged. I do think that when we talk about NATO, there can be a rational discussion about the pros and cons of expanding it. We currently have combat troops in about 6 nations. We have troops actively just stationed in probably a couple dozen others. We have a $20 trillion debt. And one of my favorite articles of the last couple years was one that talked about the angry McCains. And if we put active troops and got involved in combat where McCain wants us to be, they put a little angry McCain on the globe, on the map, and it's virtually everywhere. So his foreign policy is something that would greatly endanger the United States, greatly overextend us, and there has to be the thought whether or not it's in our national interest to pledge to get involved with war if Montenegro has an altercation with anyone. There's also another argument is that when you ask the people of Montenegro, only about 40% or slightly less are actually in favor of this. They are close to Russia. They're close to being sort of like Ukraine in the transition from Europe to Asia. Perhaps it would be good to be like Switzerland and be more neutral and trade with both. So there's a lot of considerations, but to call someone somehow an enemy of the state or a traitor might be considered by most reasonable people to be a little over the top.
Well, Senator, you just called John McCain unhinged. You said he was past his prime. Why do you think so many other senators have voted in favor of this measure if it's so crazy?
I think that there is a bipartisan consensus that's incorrect that we should have the whole world in NATO. For example, if we had Ukraine and Georgia in NATO, and this is something McCain and the other neocons have advocated for, we would be at war now because Russia has invaded both of them. And so I think having former satellites or former parts of the Soviet Union in NATO is very provocative, and you have to decide in advance whether you're ready to go to war. If you guys are ready to send a million troops into Ukraine and fight World War III, you're going to do it without my support, because I think that's a really...
Now, I'll tell you, Stacey, I consider myself a military advocate, and I agree with everything Rand Paul just said there. Every single thing. We are overextended. We are in debt. And if we listen to McCain, like he said, and the rest of these neocons that never found a war, they never found a country they didn't want to bomb. If we had Georgia and Ukraine in NATO, we would already be in World War III. And I think I never agreed with that from the beginning. I was even nervous with Poland. You start bringing countries. It's like if the Russians would bring Mexico into the Warsaw Pact. It's something you don't mess around with.
Right. And I think you're exactly right. It's interesting, too, how far you can kind of come along with that, because I'm with you. I mean, we do. If McCain it's like he's never seen a war he didn't want to jump in on or try and cause. And we are so overextended at this point. And there's not enough of American military to have every country be in every organization so that the United States has to come to their aid. You know, we can't do it.
And we have to, and it's the same as with these budget cuts. And these people that are going to be making all these arguments to save Big Bird and Sesame Street, which makes more money by themselves, they don't need federal funding. But just because a program's good doesn't mean you have to continue to increase spending. We're going to go broke and we're going to get invaded at some point. I mean, if the dollar's not worth anything, we're in trouble. That being said, like I said before, I consider myself a military advocate. Anybody who's listened to the program for any amount of time knows that. But I've also pledged to always tell the truth. And I've got some serious concerns. At the beginning, I was like everybody else. I was all gung-ho about all these generals being in the administration. But what we're going to do for the rest of the program is we're going to go over 5 different generals. And I'm not going to go in depth on any of them just because we don't have time. But the show notes are there. It's Cold War Radio 445, and you can catch the articles in their entirety. But I'm nervous. You got H.R. Mcmaster, and this information is brought to you by the New York Times, Mark Landler, and Eric Schmidt. President Trump appointed Lieutenant General H.R. Mcmaster as National Security Advisor on Monday. President Trump's newly appointed National Security Advisor has told his staff that Muslims who commit terrorist acts are perverting their religion, rejecting a key ideological view of other senior Trump advisors, and signaling a potentially more moderate approach to the Islamic world. The advisor, Lieutenant General H.R. Mcmaster, told the staff of the National Security Council on Thursday in his first all-hands staff meeting that the label radical Islamic terrorism was not helpful because terrorists are un-Islamic, according to people who were in the meeting. That's a repudiation of the language regularly used by both the president and General McMaster's predecessor, Michael T. Flynn, who resigned last week. Now, I don't know, Stacy, but this kind of, for me, who is clearly not nearly as educated as my high school buddy, General McMaster, but I'm sorry, but to have that opinion, you cannot have studied anything near Islam.
Well, I struggle with it. I really do. I don't see why they have to be mutually exclusive. Why you can't say radical Islamic terrorist, why that's not helpful, or why why he has an issue with it, because they are studying the religion of Islam, right? And they are taking, it would be like being, taking the Old Testament and still living by that. It's as if they have not progressed in any way, shape, or form. So I struggle with it because I don't see why it has to be mutually exclusive. I know I have friends that are Muslim, that they disagree wholeheartedly with what's going on with terrorism, but but they don't want to follow Sharia law here in the United States. I've talked to them about it, so I struggle with the entire thing. I do think that it's a complete departure from the way Donald Trump has approached it thus far. But I'll admit that I still struggle with lumping the entire religion in with the people who are committing the terrorist acts.
And I can see how you do that, and a lot of people do that. I'm not one of them, but a lot of people do, because I look at it a little bit differently. What you're talking about is in the Quran, and like with the Old Testament comparison. But the thing about it for me is that there's 2 other texts that actually tell them to do things, and it's just it's something that I would feel a little bit differently. Like I know that if somebody of the Christian faith, or probably of any other faith other than Islam, would go on these rampages as often, as regularly, and in so many countries the way they do, I think people from Christian organizations or Hindu or any organizations would be up in their thousands or if not millions repudiating these people.
Absolutely.
And you don't see that happening.
No, you don't. You don't see it happening a lot. And that is the part that disturbs me. But then at the same time, you have people risking their lives in these countries, helping the troops, fight in these wars. And so it's quite a struggle with it. And I do wish that we saw a little bit more of people from the Islamic faith to actually, speak out about this, because the thing is, Hutch, is that it's not PC to criticize Islam, but like you said, we would do it as Christians if it were
Right.
strict Old Testament followers who were, stoning women to death, or still having women covered from head to toe. We would be speaking out against it in droves. But that's because it's okay to speak out against Christians. It's okay
Right.
to make Christianity a bad thing. It is not okay. It is un-PC to do that about Islam, and it is not helpful that we don't see a lot more people speaking out against it. So, that is my opinion about it. But I have no problem with associating the fact that these terrorist attacks, every single one of them, are committed by someone who is studying that religion.
25,000 of them. 25,000 since 9/11. It's more than that, but I'll just use a low number.
Right.
And you look at some of the polls in some of the European countries of Muslims, and they're all for Sharia law. And anyway, we can go on about that on another show, because I want to cover the rest of these guys. Let's just hope somebody speaks some clarity to General Mcmaster. Let's talk about General.
And not just that it's not, there's not a split in how we're going to approach this as an administration.
Right. Absolutely. We want the administration and the country to succeed, for sure, and stop these attacks. But let's talk about General Petraeus, of much loved general by people other than me. But General Petraeus opposes the GOP efforts to repeal the gun ban for military veterans. On March 13th, Breitbart News, which that's who this is from, AWR Hawkins, reported that House Republicans were eyeing a repeal of the gun ban for military veterans. And it's not all military veterans. It's veterans associated with the VA that were having problems paying their accounts personally. It's bizarre. But on March 14th, retired Army General David Petraeus and his gun control group, he linked up with Gabby Gifford's husband, who's a Air Force colonel, I think, or either Air Force or Navy, an astronaut. But their gun control group blasted the proposed repeal as irresponsible and dangerous. The gun ban for military veterans works similarly to the recently repealed Social Security gun ban in that it allows investigations to be opened on military disability recipients who require help managing their finances. Recipients who are declared mentally incompetent then face a prohibition on purchasing or possessing guns. And it's not to say, well, let's just listen to what the NRA said. They report that a military veteran labeled with a mental health moniker would actually face a lifetime ban on the acquisition and possession of firearms unless he or she successfully petitions for relief. And the thing that bothers me about that, because I'm going to tell you what something like that does, that makes veterans who possibly suffer from PTSD or some other type of mental illness that are never going to give their guns up, it keeps them from seeking help. And I can't believe that a general would condone something like that.
I can't either. When I read that story, Hutch, I almost didn't believe it. I mean, I literally didn't believe what was going on with that story. I can't. I'm shocked. I'm absolutely shocked that his group, or he as a general, would support that, because how many of our soldiers have gone away and come back with PTSD? And you're going to say, and not just that, I have a friend of mine who's retired. He served several tours in Afghanistan and Iran, and had to fight tooth and nail to get his full, pension put together. Well, so if he had problems paying his finances to the VA, then he can't own a gun anymore? I mean, it's just absolutely absurd to me that this would occur. And it's not just that, but they did the same thing for seniors who are on Social Security, and if they were having problems with their finances as well. So you're taking people who are vulnerable,
the most vulnerable, right?
Absolutely, and not just that, but some people who've served our country, and you're going to tell them that they cannot have guns if they go seek help for something like PTSD. It just that story outraged me, and I was shocked.
That's the Obama administration that did that too. That's something that toward the end of the Obama administration they did both of those because they hate veterans and they don't like senior citizens either. They're a pain. But now I almost made a mistake. I had read some stories that General Mattis was this big climate change guy and all this other thing, and I started to just go that way. But as I was researching it, I noticed that almost all of the reports were all from left-wing type publications. And I found another one from the Daily Caller, hat tip to Michael Bastosh. Everyone is misinterpreting Mattis's remarks on climate change, from the Daily Caller. You think Secretary of Defense James Mattis was as concerned with man-made climate change as the head of Greenpeace based on reporting of leaked written statements he sent to lawmakers in January. U.S. Defense Secretary James Mattis says climate change is already destabilizing the world, the UK Independent reported from a leaked questionnaire obtained by ProPublica. The Huffington Post reported Mattis said climate change is real and threatening global stability. ProPublica spun it as Mattis' unpublished testimony before a Senate panel recognizes a threat others in the administration reject or minimize. But the media is painting the wrong picture about his comments. The DoD has viewed climate change, whether man-made or natural, as a national security concern for at least a decade. His boilerplate remarks reflect the highly risk-averse thinking of officials in both the Bush and Obama administrations that climate change is one of many scenarios the military may need to adapt to. Here's what he actually wrote in response to New Hampshire Senator Jeanine Shaheen, a real oxygen thief. I understand that while you were commander of U.S. Joint Forces Command, you signed off on a document called the Joint Operating Environment, which listed climate change as one of the security threats the military will face in the next quarter century. Do you believe climate change is a security threat? And he answered, climate change can be a driver of instability, and the Department of Defense must pay attention to potential adverse impacts generated by this phenomenon. The senator asked General Mattis, how should the military prepare to address this threat? He answered, as I noted above, climate change is a challenge that requires a broader, whole-of-government response. If confirmed, I will ensure that the Department of Defense plays its appropriate role within such a response by addressing national security aspects. In a reply to another question, Mattis said, I agree that the effects of a changing climate, such as increased maritime access to the Arctic, rising sea levels, desertification, among others, impact our security situation. I will ensure that the department continues to be prepared to conduct operations today and in the future, and that we are prepared to address the effects of a changing climate on our threat assessments, resources, and readiness. He also said climate change is impacting stability in areas of the world where our troops are operating today. It is appropriate for the combatant commands to incorporate drivers of instability that impact the security environment in their areas into their planning. So, and you can look at the rest of the remarks on there, but it's basically he's saying, yeah, if something changes, we'll adapt to it.
Yeah, right. I'll do as I need to as it pertains to national security.
Exactly.
Next question. Am I the only person out there who just doesn't believe in this climate change bullshit? I mean, crap. I'm so sorry.
I don't believe any of it.
I don't believe it for 1 minute.
I believe the climate changes, but I don't think we have anything to do with it. And I think that humanity has been around for such a short time. I don't think it's changed since we've been here. It might have changed a degree or two, but it'll go back down or go back up.
Yeah, I know. I believe climate changes too. And I believe people who study the weather can't even figure out where a frickin' blizzard is going to go. So I have a hard time trusting that they know what the heck they're talking about with it. And I will tell you what it is. And that is simply a means of transferring wealth to cronies and different corporations. That is all it is. That is all it is, and now it's a way for the UN to extort countries that have more wealth to distribute it to other nations, and I find it disgusting. And I find the fact that they have brainwashed our children into believing that it is such a threat. I was listening to Rush Limbaugh kind of on and off today, and he was talking about some survey, and I apologize because I didn't get the name of it, but they said that more of our youth were more concerned about the threat of climate change than they were the threat of ISIS. And so
they should have let them play war when they were kids.
Absolutely.
Should let them play with guns. It is. Absolutely. I'll tell you what changed. I'll tell you what solidified my beliefs in global warming and this whole ridiculous movement is NASA. When you look at pictures of the Earth from space, there's no way in hell man has anything to do with anything. I mean, when you look at our planet from far away, and you realize how minuscule we are, even every man, woman, and child on the whole planet, compared to the planet, most of the planet's uninhabitable. You know what I mean? And you look at that, and it's like, no way, man. We're ants. We're smaller than ants.
I know.
We're nothing.
We are.
Absolutely. You want to talk about climate change? You want to talk about CO2 emissions? Watch Mount St. Helens erupt. You know what I mean? That's some stuff right there. But nuclear bombs it's all garbage. In my opinion, and these people, it's like you said. I mean, when global warming started going down, when John Boehner did the only heroic act he ever did, when he stood up against the what was it called at the beginning, when they were trying to do the carbon footprint deal right at the beginning of the administration. I can't remember the name of it, but there was a program that they were going to charge carbon credits and carbon taxes.
Oh my God! Right, and all that was
Right after it failed, Al Gore's carbon climate exchange failed in Chicago. It went bankrupt. So it's all bull. Now
it's all bull. It was all just to get them a little bit more money in their pockets. It's the stupidest thing I've ever heard of.
And we got a lot of stupid people that believe it, like you said. Now, here to me, this guy that I'm getting ready to talk about next is The Rock. This guy is the best. I didn't know that much about General John Kelly, but we're gonna talk about some things about this guy. And like I said, if you go on the website, steelcityresistance.blogspot.com, you got to check this speech out. But this is brought to us by Cosmopolitan, a reprint from Associated Press, Michael Sebastian. Donald Trump has chosen retired Marine General John F. Kelly, who spent 40 years in the U.S. Marines, including 3 tours in Iraq, to lead the Department of Homeland Security. The Department of Homeland Security is the 3rd largest cabinet department and oversees the security at the nation's airports and along its borders. Kelly is 66, a Boston native with a decorated career in the military. He's also drawn criticism for his views on whether women should be allowed in combat roles. His decades of military service and deep commitment to fighting the threat of terrorism inside our borders makes him the ideal choice to serve as our Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security, Trump said in a statement. He is the right person to spearhead the urgent mission of stopping illegal immigration and securing our borders, streamlining TSA, and improving coordination between our intelligence and law enforcement agencies. He was confirmed on January 20th, and here's what you need to know about him. His son was killed in combat. The speech that's on my website was given 4 days after his son was killed in combat. He has the unfortunate distinction of being the highest-ranking military officer to lose a child in Iraq or Afghanistan. In 2010, Kelly's son, Lieutenant Robert Michael Kelly, died in Afghanistan while leading a platoon. Kelly has said little publicly about the death of his son, but 4 days after his son's death, he gave a fiery speech about military sacrifice. Their struggle is your struggle, he said. He's speaking to a military audience. If anyone thinks you can somehow thank them for their service and not support the cause for which they fight, our country, these people are lying to themselves. So he doesn't mention his son in the speech, but you need to probably go check it out. It's very emotional. I've seen 1/3 of it. I haven't seen the entire thing. But some of the things you need to know about him, he led the United States Southern Command for 4 years. It's a vast area, includes the Caribbean, Central and South America, and this is where he got a lot of his knowledge that's going to help concerning the immigration situation. Now, he questioned President Obama's decision to open combat jobs to women. In January, the Pentagon said it was opening combat roles in the military to women. Kelly, who was heading up U.S. Southern Command at the time, expressed concern over the decision, namely that the military would have to lower its standards, and this is just physical reality, to accept women in these roles. So there's a lot about that. Another thing you need to know is that he oversaw Guantanamo Bay Prison when he was head of the Southern Command. He also, let's see here, I thought that I made this red, and I did not. He will likely be responsible for building Trump's promised wall. So the job of planning and building the Trump wall between the United States and Mexico will likely fall on Homeland Security, and it already has. You've already seen him talking about that. So there's a lot more to that article. Check it out. Stacey, I think this guy's, I like him better than Mattis.
I was about to say, he sounds like the best one of the bunch. I'd put Mattis as a close second to him, but he definitely sounds like he's the top of the group of generals that Trump has surrounding him. I like it. I like it a lot.
Too. And now to wrap this portion of the program up, I wanted to bring up Michael Flynn, because he kind of went away before anybody got a chance to really see what was going on. I was leery about Michael Flynn from the beginning. I will take credit for that. My gut. I'm a big supporter of the Kurds and a greater Kurdistan. And I'm not a big supporter of Turkey. I think Turkey is the fly in the ointment. I think that us having them as a NATO ally is a huge mistake. I've heard stories about these people over the years, and there's some things going on in Syria right now. I don't know if you're aware of it, but we sent Marines there. We sent 1,000 Marines with artillery pieces, but we also sent a contingent. I don't know if it's out of those thousands that this contingent's part of, but the Kurds, and I think it's the YPG, but the Kurds and the Turkish military banded together to fight ISIS in the region, and they hate each other, and so they started fighting each other.
Right, so they sent the Marines in to try and kind of separate that, right?
Try and put them in the middle, right?
Order.
Not a good place to be.
Yeah.
But anyway, Michael Flynn's lobbying firm received $530,000 from Turkish client, and I had to go to the UK Telegraph for this one. Also, Nick Allen, because the rest of the publications on this subject were all smear pieces by left-wing sites. But Michael Flynn, President Donald Trump's former national security advisor, has confirmed his lobbying firm carried out $530,000 worth of work that may have helped the Turkish government, let's say Erdogan, in the run-up to the U.S. election. Trump sacked Flynn, a former U.S. Army lieutenant general, last month for misleading Vice President Mike Pence about the extent of his contacts, But the latest thing, when he registered as a foreign agent over work of with a Turkish company, that's what made me say, man, we are never. I want to see a free Kurdistan. I want to see Kurdistan become a country that we finally have an ally, a real ally, in the area. You know, I had the president of the Kurdish Congress in America on the program. I've had Hadi Ellis on the program from Turkey. And these people, we've been ripping them off ever since the first President Bush, and probably before that. I remember, Stacey, when the Iran hostage situation was going on. That's the first time I ever heard the word Kurds.
Right.
They were in the north, and they were an issue. I can't remember exactly how, but that's when I first learned of them. And ever since then, you know, we've told them we're going to help them, and then we never do. You know, the situation with the Yazidis, when they were in the mountain in Mosul, and I heard the guys pleading. They said, "Look, we don't want any money. Send us some guns. Send us some planes. Give us something so we can fight back. We'll do the fighting."
I agree. I mean, it's interesting too, because when I've heard of them too, it's always they seem to be on the right side along with us, and I've never understood why we didn't do what we said we were going to do. It makes no sense to me. But the whole region is so complex and so confusing. I just thank goodness that we have people like yourself who also bring in good guests to help us understand it a little bit more, because there's so much infighting between each of the groups, and it's hard to know who the good guys are. But it always seems like the Kurdish are on the side of right most of the time.
It does, and I'll tell you, they're a hard-living bunch too. I mean, you look at some of these people, and their women fight. I mean, right alongside their men, their women have a lot more power than any other women in the region. I mean, their women are fully integrated in everything that goes on, and there's some weird nationalities going on with them. There's Caucasian involved. I mean, I remember reading the story once. Plus, it's more than one people. I mean, this region is so vast in between Iraq and Iran and Turkey and Syria. They're kind of a different ethnicity in between all these countries, and everybody hates them. And I mean, it would just be a natural ally for us, I think, and I hope somebody in the administration is thinking of that. And that was why my heart sank when I heard Flynn was coming in there. When I started studying a little bit about him, I'm thinking, oh no, man, we're going to suck right up to Erdogan. These people are going to be in the dust.
And your gut was apparently right, because it sounds like it was the right decision for him to go. And it'll be interesting to see if any more comes out about him, because with the whole situation that's gone on since then, it seems like, that phone call was not enough to get him gone. I mean, I get the fact that he lied to Pence. I can see how you can justify letting him go on that situation, but it started so much blood in the water. It really impacted things for several weeks. So I just wonder if we're going to find out more things about him. And I don't mean to disparage him at all, because maybe that's all it was, maybe it was, but he does seem to have some other ties there that, maybe they had some additional information and decided to let him go.
Well, one of the reasons I decided to do this episode was because basically a little bit of it was for our show's credibility. I mean, it's something that I'm always on the military side. It's what I did my whole life. And, but when I see things like this, and I've seen the politicization of the upper ranks of the military, like Petraeus, for instance, his first combat tour was as a division commander. That never happens. He did his little... He checked the blocks. He was a company commander for a while and a battalion commander for the shortest time possible. And then he taught a lot of college, and he was aides for generals and things like that. But, I look at that, and then, I see some of these things that are happening, and I wonder if Mcmaster's, if his insight on Islam is political. Is he doing it because that's a politically correct stance to have, And I just wonder. And with Flynn... I have to say, with Flynn, I don't trust anybody in the intelligence community, because they think they're above everything. They think that they're smarter than everybody else, and the Constitution is just it's just there. We're going to do whatever we get to do because we're spies and we're allowed to do anything. And I just don't trust any of those guys. Hayden, any of them. They make me nervous.
I know. It is. I'm telling you, some crazy times, right around now.
And when you're in the military, too, and you're around these people, they're different than everybody else. They're like MPs, they're different. You got the military, but then you got the MPs over here, and you got the intelligence guys over there, and the medical guys over there. There's a whole bunch of different communities within the military.
Yeah.
And the intelligence guys are the scary. They're the ones you don't know. They're the ones that show up with long hair. I mean, it's just, God bless them. God bless them for what they do. But
absolutely. But it's getting to the point, with, and this is why I really want a good investigation about everything that went on with Russia and Trump and any type of surveillance that went on. I mean, Hutch, it's very scary when you start having the intelligence community used like this. I feel like we're living in a country that's not American. Intelligence is not supposed to be political, and it makes me very nervous with everything that's going on. It shouldn't be political on either side. It's
time to move agencies. It's time to move agencies to other parts of the country and get them out of D.C. D.C. voted 97% for Hillary Clinton. We got to break that up.
Yeah.
That's where all the employees come from. It might not be the appointed or elected officials, but it's where all the employees come from. So, and there's a lot of them, millions of them. Hey, Stacey, we're out of time. How can people get in touch with you on social media?
You guys can always reach me easiest on Twitter. I'm at DiscoveringMe40 on Twitter, and I am The Right Rush on Gab. And as always, thanks, Hutch. It's a pleasure.
Can't wait till next week. Thanks, Stacey. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening live, everyone that listened live and listening to the podcast and in the chat room. We love you. Stay tuned. Wayne Dupree coming up at 9 p.m. on RSBN and Spreaker. Hutch Bailey Jr. on Facebook, Berg's Eye View on Twitter. Thanks for letting us into your life for an hour. God bless. Jacob, take us out of here.